Hi, my name is Heather McGowan, and I want to talk to you about what skills are needed for the future of work. Let's talk about some questions we'll address. Let's talk about why the skills gap will never close, and I actually think that's a good thing. We're going to talk about how some of the most valuable skills you learned in kindergarten. We're also going to talk about the growing importance of behaviors. We're going to talk about why we're moving away from static skills towards more of a focus on behaviors, learning agility, and motivation. Now, work is bigger than the box. A job is a box, and it's often defined by the last occupant, with a lot of information that's largely irrelevant. But if you look at actually what goes on and look at these skills, most of them fall in and out of the box, and they're always moving. And we draw this artificial line around a set of skills at a point in time to define a job. That's going to be increasingly irrelevant, because let's look at the skills gap. So a skills gap forms when a human demonstrates a skill, a new skill has become valued, and then the market has a supply of skilled workers, and those things are usually apart. What's between them is the skills gap. Now, if we had a supply of workers that met the skills the market needed, we actually wouldn't be progressing. So what we should be doing, being constant pursuit of narrowing the skills gap, but never intending to actually close it, because when we close it, we've stopped progress. So I say we used to learn once in order to work, now we're going to work in order to learn continuously. Let's compare the mindset we have around work and living and the reality. So human life expectancy was 168. Education was that first 30 of your life, then you had a span of work, and the change rate was relatively slow. That's the old paradigm. You retired for the last couple of years. The reality now is life expectancy is somewhere around 72 to 75, depending on where you are in the world. Some places as high as 80. It'll be 90 to 100 soon. Work's taking a much longer part of your life since we're living longer. Instead of retiring, we're now going to remain engaged for a whole host of reasons. Some of them are economic, but also it's better for us socially and cognitively to remain engaged. Change rate is much faster. So education, which implies the end state of being educated, can't just be the first of your life. Learning now goes across the lifespan. That's the new reality. And that visual will be helpful. Now let's talk about how corporate lifespans and human lifespans have switched. The lifespan of a corporation used to be more than 80 years, and a human lifespan was less than 70. Now the human lifespan, in some instances, longer than 80 and going towards 100, and the corporate lifespan is about 20. Now let's look at the career arc. The career arc's much longer because the lifespan's much longer. Let's also look at the shelf life of skills. The shelf life of skills is much shorter. So if you look at this visual, which might be particularly helpful, you used to be able to have one set of training that was significant for your entire career. Now you're going to have to train continuously. Let's talk about the growing importance of behaviors. So we used to hire people who did the job before. Get me someone who did that before. They've got a recommendation, they're credentialed, they've been in the exact experience you're looking for somebody to do. That's becoming increasingly rare. So instead of hiring people based on past skills and experience, we've made a progression. As we move away from skills being known and the change rate moving faster, we then move towards credentials and degrees. Get me someone with a degree in whatever it is, because we can't find someone with experience in it. And then when things moved more quickly, because to make a degree takes about a decade. It takes about a decade to make the curriculum, the 4 years to put somebody through it, a couple years to prove it. So it's a decade from the time you have need to you get need relief. So we had to move towards short courses and skills and shorter forms of credentials. But now we're moving into a situation where you're going to be hiring people to do something that nobody's done before. So what do you do about that? Increasingly, we're going to look at behaviors. We're going to look at people who have credentials and skills and have education. Absolutely. And in fact, the demand for college and university education continues to increase, but that's not the end of the race, it's the beginning. You're going to be learning and adapting for the rest of your life. So what kind of behaviors do we look for? Adam Grant says we look for character skills. He says proactive, pro-social, determined, and disciplined. I would add to that curiosity, divergent thinking, empathy, and judgment. Those are the behaviors that you're going to need to have that will signal that you can learn and adapt, specifically to market changes, and you can work with people, even people you don't like. Now, it's interesting to look at the World Economic Forum. They put out skills lists every year or so. And what's interesting is how they've changed over the last decade or so. So they have skills in things like technology, cognition, self-efficacy, pro-social, management, ethics. And if you look at these top skills they have for 2030, for example, of course, there are 3 in technology, there are 2 in cognition, there are 2 in self-efficacy, which is very interesting, and there's 1 in management and 1 in ethics. But what's really interesting to look at is the shift over the last decade. There was a big push for STEM, and while technology is clearly still important because the top 3 jobs are technology-based, the emphasis on pure tech skills is declining. The emphasis on human skills with tech fluency is increasing. Not unlike what David Denning's research had showed us. Now let's look at whether or not we're correctly focused on our system of education. If we look at a spectrum, and this visual might be particularly helpful, on a spectrum from convergent thinking to divergent thinking, from cognitive intelligence to emotional intelligence, social intelligence. We have kindergarten over here. Kindergarten is where you learn to ask why, you need to explore your feelings, you explore your relationships and how you relate to other people. And then you get into high school and a lot of university, which is, did I get the right answer? Will it be on the test? It's all about your cognitive intelligence and the correct answer. And all of our workforce development skills gaps are somewhere between kindergarten and high school, where we're missing a lot of those really important things we learn in kindergarten, because it's less about what and it's more about why and how. Now, I use an iceberg model to get people to understand how we're upside down. So what is out of the water and what's clear to everybody are the skills to do, the technical skills, and these are often perishable skills. And we hyper-focus on them and we hire people for them, and they're fleeting. They're often expired. What's at the waterline are those behaviors that Adam Grant talks about, ones that I talk about, proactive, pro-social, learning agility, are uniquely human skills and traits, sometimes called character traits. Below that is your mindset. I call it an agile learning mindset. Your ability to learn and adapt to market changes so that you can move your skills and knowledge to areas of greater market value. And then the bottom of the pyramid, which is in some cases must be the most important, what motivates you? Understanding your own intrinsic motivation, because if you're going to learn and adapt for life, and you need to be connected to what motivates you, what lights your fire. And that's resilience, emotional regulation, and having a connection to your sense of purpose. Now let's look at what factors actually contribute to thriving. So there's three buckets. There's a socioeconomic status, which you're born with, and some of that is mostly fixed, called SES. Then there's your IQ, which is largely fixed. You can improve some of your cognition, but you can't really dramatically improve your IQ. And then there's your conscientiousness, and this is improvable. Those are what I call your behaviors. So if we look at your success in education, in adult life, and in your job or career, it's interesting how these three factors come into play. So your educational attainment has a strong correlation with your socioeconomic status. That's whether you're born with it or not a lot to do there. It has moderate connection to your success in life, which is interesting, and it has the least connection to your success in a job. Sometimes being born with advantages makes you less hungry in the workforce. Now, if we look at your IQ quotient, your success in education is very strong. If you have a high IQ, you generally persist through higher levels of education. It has a mild to non-existent correlation with your success in life. High IQ people aren't necessarily successful in life. In your job, it has a moderate connection that really has to do with what level of IQ you have. It's somewhere it's a 20 to 30% correlation. Now, your conscientiousness has a moderate connection to your education, has a very strong connection to your success in adult life. These are your adulting skills, these behaviors. They make you more successful in your life, and they're things you can work on. And they have a very strongest of all the categories in your success in your career. So why are we so focused on IQ and cognitive development and not on the life skills development that will make you more successful, not in your life, but in your career? So these conscientious, or behaviors as I call them, Adam Grant found they're 2.4 times as important as your IQ as your predictor of your success in your career, but also in your life. So what are the key skills for the future work? I think they're behaviors. Your ability to learn, adapt, and get stuff done with other people, particularly ones you don't like. Your connection and understanding of your motivation, which is intrinsic. Dan proved that 12 or 14 years ago. How do you connect with your sense of purpose as a way to fuel that motivation? And then I think increasingly important, Scott Galloway talks about this a lot, is your awareness to market opportunity. If you have great skills, but there's no market that values them, it's going to be hard to be successful in life. My name is Heather McGowan. Thank you. If you found this helpful, you can find a link in the description below to my next video, Why Are Nonlinear Careers the Future of Work? Thanks.